everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. Today it is it's Saturday, honestly, May 25th. This is Kyle, joined by my co-host Michael Hall. What's going on, brother?
What's going on, everybody?
Not much except for the fact that Josh Norman is having a much better day than I am right now. He was flying in the F-16s, the Thunderbirds, flying around. I'm not sure about you, dude, but I would get jacked up for that.
Right, right. He's always doing some crazy stuff in the off season.
And at least he's like incorporating the military into it. At least they're getting somewhat of a spotlight from the an NFL player like that, bring a lot of eyes onto what they do and how awesome it really is.
Yep, yeah, it's pretty tight, pretty tight. He's good for him.
So a bunch of things have developed over the past week. The Redskins returned for OTAs on Tuesday after Memorial Day, obviously. And a lot of buzz has been flying around because apparently Dwayne Haskins has done what we talked about he was possibly going to do, and that was continue excelling, continuing to get better, even though Jay Gruden is throwing the entire book at him. I'm not sure about you, but I heard all across from NFL Network to Twitter about that Dwayne Haskins could possibly be getting the starting job week one.
Yeah, I've been hearing the same thing. All the beat reporters, Craig Hoffman, JP Finley, the guys like that have been saying he's exponentially better looking in practice. I mean, obviously, it's just shoulder pads and helmets and shorts, but the arm strength is there. I guess he's working on his footwork. That's getting better. And then pretty much it's going to come down to can he call plays in the huddle, and is he going to know who goes where and who's going to line up where, protection, stuff like that.
Yeah, and the weird thing about it is that Case Keenum is there. And that being said as well about him looking exceptionally well, going against Case Keenum, who is coming from a different kind of offense, coming from a different kind of style, they're both having to learn and pick up things quickly. Obviously, McConnell has a history with Dwayne. We've talked about it back when he was a senior. McConnell had coached him a small bit. Even given that fact that they're both learning this offense and that Dwayne Haskins was still head and shoulders above Case, I mean, that says a lot about Dwayne Haskins.
I 100% agree. And hey, like I said, if he's the guy and he looks like the guy and he's ready to go and he's locked in for week one, then I got no problem starting him. I don't know. I don't know why I expected Case Keenum to come in and I guess pick up things faster and get assimilated faster. But hey, if the Rook's coming in there and doing his thing, let him have at it.
Right, and we talked about that before, about how what would happen to this area and around the football team if Dwayne Haskins continued to play well, if he continued to develop under Jay, what was going to happen with his town, because there's no stopping that train once it starts getting some momentum. And we saw that with Jason Campbell, Mark Brunell. We saw that with Kirk Cousins when RG3 started deteriorating slowly but surely. When fans and the front office agree on who should be the quarterback, there is no stopping it. As soon as the talk happens, it's inevitable at that point. And I think that's
Exactly.
evident based on the previous circumstances. And if he continued, we talked about this, if he continued playing well in OTAs and training camp, there was no way that the fans in the front office was going to allow Case Keenum to start week one.
Exactly. And I think it's going to come down to training camp and when he gets preseason action and he actually has defenders coming at him, and he's in the pocket, live in the pocket with people flying around him. Because I was actually watching Redskins 100 the other day, and there was this crazy stat that they put up where his passer rating was like above 100 when he in a clean pocket, which obviously every quarterback should have like a passer rating like that with a clean pocket.
Right.
But the scary thing was when he was under pressure in the pocket and had like a muddy, dirty pocket, his passer rating went down like 55 points, and it was like horrible. So that's going to be the big thing going forward. Is he going to be able to stand in the pocket with the pressure around him? Is he going to be able to take those hits with the linebackers or make the throws with the linebackers staring right down and coming down, gunning at him head on? And everyone knows that Case Keenum's done that. He's been doing that in the NFL his whole career. So I think that's going to be a big part going forward too.
So let's just say, hypothetically speaking, I think now is the time, Mike. I know you're going to laugh and everyone's going to laugh, but I think now is the time that we should start talking about fantasy football. It's the end of May. I know we have a lot of 4 months to go until the start of the season, But this is where things start heating up. And I want to kind of pick your brain on, for fantasy football purposes, let's say Dwayne Haskins gets to start week 1. Where do you rank him in the quarterbacks? Not even actually no, screw that. Don't do based on quarterbacks. Where do you see him? Is he even draft eligible? If you were going into it a week before the season starts, Dwayne Haskins has looked good. He's looked average throughout the preseason. He's shown progress. He doesn't look like an Andrew Luck, or he doesn't look like, Carson Wentz coming out, but he looks standard and average. Where do you see him getting drafted in fantasy?
Just because I know someone that's a Redskins fan will end up drafting him most likely. I could see it being like the 12, scratch that, like 14 to 17, 16 rounds somewhere, like definitely on the back end. But really, it's going to come down to if the receivers can actually produce because, I mean, he can look good at all he wants to and blah, blah, blah. But if the receivers aren't catching passes and putting up numbers, it's going to affect him and his fancy numbers as well. So, yeah, I would say definitely the last, like maybe last 3 rounds, I could see him going.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. And somebody else who's really dependent on what Dwayne Haskins does at the quarterback position, if he does start, is Jordan Reed. Because we have seen with Jordan Reed, when he has a consistent and reliable quarterback, he can be a top 5 fantasy tight end. It's just
He could be top 5 in the league overall,
right.
just in general.
He has to have a quarterback to be able to do that. So if Dwayne Haskins is average, I think Jordan Reed's stock in fantasy flies way up, and I think that he could be a guy that's targeted in the front 7 rounds.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, he had a really, really down year last year. I don't know what was going on with him between Alex Smith when he was in there and then Colt for the game and a half he was in there, and Mark Sanchez and Josh Johnson and whoever else. Jay Gruden might have took a couple snaps back there. Who knows? But yeah, I think definitely this is going to be a bounce back year for him. Like you said before, when there's a consistent passer of throwing to the ball, big arm guy can put it in his hands and get him good yard after catch. I can definitely see him going in probably the first 5, like you said, 5 to 7 rounds. He could definitely be a top 3 to 4 tight end this year, especially in a year where the tight ends, it's not really a lot of stock in tight ends outside of Travis Kelce. Gronkowski's gone, and outside of Zach Ertz and Kelce, it's kind of like a big drop off. And then Jordan Reed's that next tier type player.
Right, and look, he's coming off of 54 receptions, 558 yards, and only 2 touchdowns, but his receiving yards per reception was 10.3.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, so look, he had a relatively good year last year when he was used, but it's exactly what like you and I have talked about many times. The offense had Jordan Reed going to 10-yard stops, had him taking 5-yard outs, and that is obviously shown here in his stats with it evening it up at 10 yards a catch. And so that makes a lot of sense. And if he has somebody like Dwayne Haskins who can get outside the pocket, can brush off rushers, can keep his eyes downfield, a guy like Jordan Reed can be huge. When you look at a guy like Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, them being able in the open field, being able to extend plays and fire down the field, they can really, really stretch that offense. And I think Jordan Reed could really make a big move this fantasy season for a lot of really smart owners out in the NFL.
I 100% agree. And like I said earlier, with the Haskins numbers, it's going to come down to also with the receivers with Jordan Reed. Or there's going to be someone on the outside or that slot receiver like a Trey Quinn or even Kelvin Harmon, and even Terry McLaurin can light up in the slot. But is there going to be someone else that can take the pressure and not everyone just focus on Jordan Reed? Because I think also that was a problem last year. Defenses weren't scared of Doxson. Paul Richardson was injured for pretty much since he started playing. So it was literally just stop the run and stop Jordan Reed. So I think, like you said, I think if the receivers can have just the slightest threat, that's going to open up so much more space in the middle of the field for Jordan Reed.
Yeah, and I also want to talk about for fantasy purposes, on let's just say it's not going to be a battle by any means, but in the battle between Kelvin Harmon and Terry McLaurin, who could you see having a better overall fantasy year? Because right now I'm sitting here thinking that it's going to be Kelvin Harmon. He fits the mold of the number 2 wide receiver. I know Paul Richardson is there, but Kelvin Harmon provides a kind of consistency, catch radius that Dwayne Haskins needs. But he can also get down the field and catch long balls. He can track the ball in the air. And so I think that he is a wild card that we can throw into this because I can almost see Terry McLaurin being the backup to Trey Quinn. Because everything that I've seen up until this point of Trey Quinn is that he is balling out at OTAs and he's really looking good. And so if that continues, I could see him having a kind of Jameson Crowder year where McLaurin is taken out of the fold almost and predominantly just special teams. Kelvin Harmon, I think, could provide that number two spot, that number two consistency if Paul Richardson gets healthy or if, quite frankly, he's not performing.
I 100% agree. I was going to go Kevin Harmon as well. But for another reason to add on to your points, he's going to be a red zone target. So he's going to have numerous touchdowns and numerous attempts to get touchdowns, catches. So that's going to be boost his fantasy numbers up just by that. I know the smart answer would probably be Terry McLaurin because he went to Ohio State. They already got the rapport together, blah, blah, blah. But just as you said, Trey Quinn's been balling out from everyone was saying at OTAs. And if he continues that and can stay healthy and he can be the player that Jamison Crowder was, or at least potentially could have been, it's going to open up so much more things. And like I said, Kelvin Harmon can be that red zone target that Doxson should have been.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, speaking of fantasy, I want to transition to overall fantasy, Mike, because right now I have the 100 overall 2019 rankings, and Saquon Barkley is number one overall, and this is according to ESPN. Barkley number one overall, Zeke number two, Christian McCaffrey at three, and Alvin Kamara at four, and David Johnson at five. The first wide receiver to come off the board that they have here is DeAndre Hopkins at 11. Devontae Adams at 12 and Julio at 13. I think that's incredibly surprising, especially with Julio looking at the division that he's in and that there really is no shutdown secondary there. I think that's surprising.
That's very surprising. I could definitely see why they put Hopkins as the number one, just because he just gets so many targets that it's just like he's bound to get over 100 yards and over 1,000 yards receiving, 1,300 yards receiving. He's a deep play threat. He can go across the middle. He can run every route. Obviously, he's going to put up 7, 8, 9, 10 touchdowns every year. So I could definitely see why they went with him as number 10 or 11, whatever it was. But definitely, like you said, Julio is a freak of nature. Carolina's defense is kind of on the back end. Like Thomas Davis is what did Thomas Davis sign with?
He Arizona, I think.
Arizona, yeah. So he's gone. Like the secondary with Bradbury, he's pretty. I guess he's above average corner, but the secondary is kind of depleted. Tampa Bay, like they're on the rebuild.
They have Todd Bowles there coaching, so they could have a bounce back here. But that being said, it's gonna take time for them because of how bad their secondary is. But they did retain Vernon Hargreaves' fifth-year option, so they do have him there. Hopefully, he has a bounce back year for him.
Yeah, definitely.
You're absolutely right, but I do think that there's a player sitting at 19 that could be an absolute steal for some fantasy owners out there. So the back end of the second round they have him projected. Mike Evans at 19 is the overall, and I think that is a steal. And I think that somebody's going to be jumping off walls if that is the case. If that's a spot that he's getting taken in, I mean, my goodness, can you get a number one wide receiver that could give you top 5 capabilities?
I mean, just look at Bruce Arians' past with number one receivers. Like he had when he was with Colts, T.Y. Hilton with the Colts. He had AB. He had Emmanuel Sanders. All those guys got paid because of Bruce Arians. When he was in Arizona, he had Larry Fitzgerald. So, I mean, just look at his track record with big, tall number one receivers. And for him to be going at 19, that's going to be a huge steal, like you said. And honestly, if he's sitting there at 19 in the second round at any point, I'm jumping head first to get him.
Oh, absolutely. And another guy that's screaming to me, I know we like to make jabs at him every now and again, but it's Juju Smith-Schuster with the Steelers. We saw the capabilities of Juju Smith-Schuster last year because Big Ben, it's common sense, it's common knowledge, it's talked about a lot. Big Ben targeted Juju more, went after Juju, wanted Juju to succeed, kind of shafting Antonio Brown just a little bit. But given the fact that Juju is now the number one wide receiver in that offense, I think that he has the capabilities of being a top 10 fantasy player next season, just based in PPR formats. I think that he is going to eat up points.
I agree. I think he's going to take over the target load, no homo, that AB was getting, like the 10 to 12, 15 targets a game that AB was getting. I just want to see if they're going to have another receiver on the inside or outside that's going to take a little bit of the pressure off because, obviously he had one of the best in the game, AB, on the other side of him, opposite side of him, that was getting most of the double teams. So if he's able to beat the double teams and even just put up 80% of the production he had last year, the year before that, definitely he'll be a steal for somebody and definitely a top 10 fantasy player this year coming up.
Oh, absolutely, and I agree. A running back that you and I have talked about it at nauseum, and that is being Nick Chubb. I think that he is somebody that could be a dark horse here, and they have him sitting at 22, so the back end of the second round, and I think that's right about accurate. I think that's right about where he should be because he could be one of those bust guys. You never know, but also he has the capabilities. And you saw last year with when Baker Mayfield set in that offense, Nick Chubb just blew off. Like he just blew
Yep.
up and just was going absolutely insane in that offense. And with Freddie Kitchens now at the helmet as head coach, I think that we're going to continue to see the success from Nick Chubb.
Once again, I 100% agree. He's definitely really, he could be a first round talent running back, but I could definitely see him back into the second round. Sounds pretty nice. I don't know why Hugh Jackson took so long to actually get Nick Chubb more playing time, just like Baker Mayfield. Who knows? But he came in and balled out when he got his touches. And coming from the SEC, like a three down back in the SEC, playing at Georgia, he can definitely take the workload going forward. And I think that the Browns are going to be a pretty like heavy run and play action type offense next year for Freddie Kitchens. And yeah, he's going to produce. Like you said, there's so many weapons on the outside around him, and Joku, Odell, Jarvis. Everything's going to be wide open, so I can definitely see some good running lanes for Nick Chubb going forward.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to talk about here, just by looking at the rankings, it kind of staggers me a little bit because look at this stretch of wide receivers at 27, 28, and 29. At 27, we start with Amari Cooper, then AJ Green, and then we have Stephon Diggs. I don't know about you, but that throws me off a little bit because I really think that AJ Green could have a bounce back year given the fact that they literally have no one else except for Tyler Boyd.
I mean, I would put Stephon Diggs above Amari too. I mean,
Yeah.
I was talking about I told you about the stat earlier. The 7 games that Dak had Amari with him, he had no more than 77 yards outside of the Eagles game and the game on Thanksgiving Day against us, where he had 2 touchdowns and 3 touchdowns. He didn't have any other touchdown catches in those 7 games. He never had more than 4 catches in any of those other games, and he never had more than 77 yards in any of those other games. So for them to put him so high, and especially above a talent like AJ Green and the not even number one, but it could be a number one A, I guess, number one B in Minnesota with Stephon Diggs is just crazy to me. And I think both of those dudes are going to put up way bigger numbers than anything that Amari's going to get this year.
Yeah, and looking at this list, I mean,
It's just because he's a Cowboy, man. They just suck the Cowboys so hard.
as of right now, there's so many quality picks right in the end of the third, middle of the fourth round here, just based on projections. Obviously, this is not the way the draft is going to play out. The list is going to get moved around. It's going to get manufactured. But as of right now, this is staggering to me. Leonard Fournette at 34. We've already heard from Coughlin to Gus Edwards about how much they're going to be using Leonard Fournette this year. And I think that he is somebody under Nick Foles. With Nick Foles at the helm, that's going to make defenses not have to stack the box anymore. They can't put 8 in the box against Nick Foles. Nick Foles is going to beat you with man-on-man coverage. And so I think that's going to really open things up for Leonard Fournette. Because let's be honest here, defenses didn't respect Blake Bortles. And all they did was load the box on the boy and say, hey, do work. And Leonard Fournette, yes, he was injured last year, but I think he could have a big year.
100% agree. I think Coughlin's going to go back to that kind of New York Giants style offense with Eli when they won the Super Bowls, which is run the ball and play defense, which is pretty much has been the formula anyway. But yeah, I think he has a bounce back year. I think he actually, for the most part, gets nicked up but stays healthy. I think he's going to be a great goal line rusher, obviously. So that's going to be good fantasy touchdown numbers. And yeah, I mean, I could definitely see him as like a definitely like solid RB2 going forward.
Absolutely. I think he could be a steal there at the end of the third round, along with
They just
Damian Williams, though, the Kansas City running back. Kareem Hunt was having top 5 running back fantasy scores the past 2 years that he was with Kansas City. They bring in Damian Williams. They go by running back by committee, and this guy runs away with the opportunity in the playoffs. They absolutely destroyed at the end of the season, and him sitting at 33, he screams first round value.
I was one of those people that was surely thought that they would try to pursue Le'Veon Bell or one of these free agent running backs that was out there.
Mm-hmm.
They stayed pat. They didn't even draft. I don't think they drafted a running back.
Yep, I was
But
right there with you. I was saying that too.
yeah, but obviously Andy Reid, he sees something going forward with Damian Williams. He, like you say, he produced towards the end of the season last year when Kareem Hunt got suspended. He did it in the playoffs, which is where you make your money at anyway. So I mean, like I said, Andy Reid, he's one of the smartest NFL minds in the game, and if he thinks he can pretty much mirror what Kareem Hunt did with Damian Williams, which I also think he can do, then again, that's a great steal and another RB2 going forward, and like a great late second, early third round pick for sure.
Yeah, and another guy that screams to me like somebody who is a running back sitting here just screaming at you in the fourth round is Philip Lindsay at 44. The
Yeah,
Denver
I remember you
running
telling
back.
me that the other day. That's crazy.
It's insane because he was putting up top 15 running back and top 15 fantasy numbers last year. I mean, he was destroying the NFL. And I remember saying to you last year, because I had Royce Freeman, I was sitting there saying, can this guy get hurt? Can he get injured? Like, what? He's so little, but he continues to ball out. And I think that continues this year for Denver with Joe Flacco because of his big arm. Defenses having to respect the long ball. And given the fact of who's in that division, I think they could have a pretty good opportunity this year to run the football well.
Oh, without a doubt. Again, I think Denver's going to get back to that old school John Elway 90s type style football where the zone stretch with Mike Shanahan and a lot of play action, bootlegs, rollouts. So, well, I guess not really with Joe Flacco, but I could definitely see a couple rollouts because he has a huge arm. But yeah, definitely Joe Flacco's up there in age, so they're going to want to pound the ball, pound the rock. And I could definitely, he's a target out the backfield. He can get catches. So, yeah, I can definitely see him putting up even better numbers this year going forward. And again, if he's sitting there in the fourth round, well, not in our draft because we have keepers. But if he was in another league and he's sitting there in the fourth round, that might be one of the biggest steals in the draft going forward.
Yeah, and I think another huge opportunity for steal wide receiver is Tyler Lockett. They have him ranked 61st overall, so about the very beginning of the sixth round. And you're getting a number one wide receiver from the former number one quarterback in the fantasy rankings after a couple seasons in Russell Wilson. And without Doug Baldwin being there, I know that they added DK Metcalf, but I don't think DK is going to be the number one wide receiver automatically. So I think Tyler Lockett could be a really good person to target if you're looking in the fifth or sixth round to get number one wide receiver production.
I, again, 100% agree. Tyler Lockett is just a fantasy stud. He just so consistently puts up 15, 20 plus points a game. He's someone that I target in FanDuel when I do my FanDuel lineups every Sunday. Literally, 90% of the time, he's probably on my roster. He's like that solid every time. But definitely, like you said, he's one of those receivers that once the play breaks down, he likes to get downfield. He makes plays for Russell Wilson. So I could definitely see after Doug Baldwin retired, they brought in DK Metcalf to alleviate some of the pressure on Lockett as well. So I could definitely see Tyler Lockett being a huge one, maybe even a top 10 wide receiver fantasy-wise this year going forward.
Yeah, and just until DK Metcalf gets up to get up to par. But somebody else I wanted to
Everything I was hearing about DK is that he was showing out in OTAs and he's got his route running down. He looks a little bit quicker, so we might be able to see big things from him as well.
They need the help now without Doug Baldwin because he was that passing game with Russell Wilson there. One question I wanted to ask you because this is intriguing to me. If you're stuck in a position, Mike, and you're drafting in the sixth round, maybe seventh round, let's say mid-seventh, late seventh, and you need a wide receiver, and you need somebody, a number two wide receiver to give you some production that is consistent, and you have to choose between these two. You have to choose between Sterling Shepard and Golden Tate there in New York. Who are you taking?
Sheesh. It's kind of a tough one.
It's a tough one, dude. I know. I that's why I wanted to ask.
I mean, I guess they kind of would be the same player as production and like points wise to me, but I'm not a big Sterling Shepard fan, so I'd probably pick Golden Tate just because I've seen him do it with Matt Stafford. I know that he has better hands than Sterling Shepard for sure. So he's definitely more of a target for Eli or Daniel Jones, whoever's playing quarterback at that point. So yeah, I guess I'll go with Golden Tate. But I mean, you're not really losing much points of production if you pick Sterling Shepard over Golden Tate, you know?
Yeah, and I'm right there with you, but I think that Sterling Shepard is the guy to go with, just because of who he is, and because of the repertoire. He's worked with Eli in the past, and we know that Eli's going to start off the season as the starter. We don't know if there's going to be a change on the line, but I would imagine that Sterling Shepard's going to have immediate success. And if you're looking for point production out of your wide receiver early and often, I think you have to go with Sterling Shepard there, just because that slot aspect, he kind of gives you that Odell mobility across the field, the crossing routes that they love to use. And I think having Saquon Barkley there is really going to open it up for those two. But I agree with you. I don't think you can go wrong there. And it's really is a toss up. It's like 1A, 1B with those
Exactly.
two. So I
Exactly.
do like that line of thinking. And then let's branch this over and let's start talking about the NBA a little bit. Tonight is Game 6 of the East Finals. We got the Bucks playing the Raptors. Right now the Raptors, it's at home for the Raptors, and they're leading the series 3-2. Do you think the Raptors close it out tonight?
I've said from the get go this is going to go 7 games. I had Milwaukee in 7, but I just think that Giannis right now and the Bucks, it's not. They need to learn how to win. I guess per se, like everyone else says, and like they need to learn how to win. They're too young. They need to learn how to win. Blah blah blah. But I think it's gonna go 7. I don't think they close it out tonight. I do think Giannis has a bounce back game because he's had a couple down games the past 2 games.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's had a couple down games the past 2 games. I think that Chris Middleton and a lot of the role players will step up big tonight. And I think if they get it to 7 and go back to Milwaukee, I said that the Bucks would win it, but I just think that Kawhi Leonard is just playing out of his mind right now. He's way too clutch. He's playing on one knee, basically. He's out there guarding Giannis, guarding whoever, putting up 30-plus a game. So I could actually see it going 7, but I got Toronto in 7.
Really? So you changed it up from the start of the series?
Yeah, just because, like I said, I've been seeing how they've been playing Giannis. They've been putting up that doubling him, tripling him, putting up that wall when he drives in the lane.
Yeah,
I think
that's what I told Cracky. I told him here on this podcast 2 weekends ago, or last weekend, that the Bucks could not play the Warriors in the finals and win. I did not see that happening. I thought Stephen A. was ridiculous for saying that. Just because, like I had said last week to Cracky, you got to learn how to lose before you learn how to win. And right now, the secondary help from Milwaukee is struggling, which I said what was going to happen is they're double teaming Giannis. He has to kick it out to the outside, and the talent around him is not good enough to knock down those shots because Eric Bledsoe has a capability. I know Brook Lopez had that 20-point game that he absolutely destroyed, but he's not going to have that every game. Eric Bledsoe is not going to carry every game. So you can't sit here and think that that Milwaukee is going to be able to go against the freaking Warriors and contend and to do well and to win games. I just don't see it happening. But that's what we're seeing here, is that Toronto's defense is winning them the series right now, and Kawhi Leonard is knocking down shots, and right now Milwaukee is struggling to score points.
And like I said, 100% agree. Kawhi's been there, done that. He's won an NBA title. He's been an NBA Finals MVP. So, I mean, he's definitely showing that he's supposed to be there. It was a great trade for Toronto to make the trade for him. I know everyone was all blown and mad that they got rid of DeRozan, blah, 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 but clearly Kyle Lowry and DeRozan never got them this far. So it was definitely a great pickup by the Toronto Raptors. And like I said, I think Kawhi is going to push him to get him over the hump in Game 7. And it'll be a pretty good series with Golden State versus Toronto.
Yep, and the Warriors closed out. They actually completely and utterly destroyed. I forget who they even played now. It was even...
I know, it was so long ago. It was the Blazers.
Yeah, the Blazers. Complete ruined Portland, Rip City, just gone away. Damian Lillard, he was struggling. He's hurt, and it sucked to see that. It was awesome to see how they got there, but they weren't there very long. The Warriors sent them home packing. And I honestly, that's how I see the finals playing out, regardless of who goes. Because Toronto right now, they're getting carried by their defense, And them using that defense against the Warriors is not going to work. They're going to have to adjust, and they're going to have to play better one-on-one defense. And I don't think they have the bodies in place to be able to stifle the Warriors enough to stop them and limit them from scoring points, because you cannot bank every game on Kawhi Leonard carrying your team in points and controlling the other team's scoring enough to where Kawhi can win you the game. You can't do that against the Warriors.
Yeah. I mean, let's also be serious. You really see Kyle Lowry running around the court, off all those ball screens, all around those picks on Steph Curry the whole game. Like, Steph Curry is going to eat him alive. So it's going to be, I think it's going to be a pretty good series. I could definitely see Toronto maybe getting like 2 games maybe out of it, just because of the home court advantage, because it's a great home court advantage when you go to play in Toronto. And so, yeah, I mean, I could definitely see maybe 2 games out of the Raptors, but yeah, I just think that Klay Thompson is going to be too much. Steph Curry is going to be too much. And if KD even comes back, I mean, that's just the icing on top of the cake right there.
I do not want to see Toronto in the finals, just because I just don't want to see Drake celebrating. I don't want to see him any more than I need to. That guy is so annoying. He's taking over the Spike Lee annoying fan of Toronto, and I can't stand it.
Yeah. I mean, it's good for the game. I like it. It's entertaining. It's funny. So I don't really mind it. But if I was there and I was a player, yes, I would be like hell of annoyed. But yeah, I don't really mind it. Like I said, it makes me laugh.
But that being said, that is a good thing for the Bucks and a good thing for the Warriors that Drake is on their side.
Yeah,
to say the least. Because
the curse continues.
Yes, and whoever Drake picks, they do not win, and I just don't see that happening. I think the Bucks, if the Bucks can find a way to win this game, I think there is no way that Toronto wins Game 7 with the Bucks at home. I think the Bucks are going to take it. If they get back home, I think they have. Tonight is the only chance that Toronto has to make it to the finals. They win or they go home, in my opinion, tonight. I think this is their Game 7 because they're at home. They're going to have the crowd in there with them. Their shooters are going to be knocking down shots because it is a known thing that at home, your shooters, your bench plays better at home. But when they're away, they struggle, and I just don't see that happening. I just don't see it going any other way. I think that the Raptors have to win this to move on, and I really do. I don't think they're good enough.
Hey, I just want to see them go to Game 7 so I can watch more basketball, honestly. There's nothing really else on TV right now. Nationals are horrible. Wizards, I mean, it's damn Wizards. I don't even want to talk about them. And, yeah, the only thing on right now is playoff basketball, so please go to Game 7. I want to see that.
Yeah, and look, the Nationals, moving on to baseball, we'll talk about them for brief, but they're a dumpster fire. They did win again. They did win. And the opening game of a series, they beat the Marlins last night. It was a hard-fought game. But they did what they needed to do. It was a great game. I absolutely loved it. McGowan pitched really well early on. He kept them in it. And he gave up a couple runs. But luckily enough, Anthony Rendon with the 2-run blast, they were able to manufacture runs early and often and continue to stay in the game. That was so big that they were able to continue to develop runs late in the game because that's what they've been missing in this losing streak.
Yep. I mean, getting Trey Turner back and getting Matt Adams back, obviously getting Rendon back, definitely got the bats woken up a little bit. The hitting hasn't been a problem. It's just they've been leaving people stranded on base has been the problem. And this is like so crazy to me because every once in a while I'll like do like some FanDuel like baseball things or whatever. Every single time I put in Adam Eaton and Victor Robles on my lineup, the Nationals win the game, and they put up like 20, 30 points, which means they had pretty good games themselves. It's crazy to me. Like, literally, it's like a 5-for-5 thing at this point. So I think I just need to start doing FanDuel like every single game and put them in the lineup every day, and hopefully they'll start winning games on streaks.
Yeah, but you should definitely do that. If I would have known that, I would have told you to do that a long time ago.
I was just like, I woke up this morning and looked at my thing, and I was like, oh, damn, I won like $6 last night. Nice. Looked at their stats, and I was like, oh, man, it's like literally like every single time. It's crazy.
Yeah, and look, the Nationals really do need a pick-me-up. They needed what they were to the Mets. They needed a beatdown. They needed a 4-game sweep. And today, the matchup is at 4 o'clock, so about 30 minutes from now, the Nationals will be throwing the first pitch. Patrick Corbin is on the hill going against Sandy Alcantara, who has a 4.25 ERA right now. But Patrick Corbin, right now, his ERA is nasty, dude. I mean, it's shitty to say. I don't want to say it. But it's 3.25. It's a lot better than Alcantara's. But it's not like the bullpen where it's up 6-7.
Yeah, yeah,
So the fact that Corbin's on the hill gives them a chance, and if he can keep the runs down, I would say about to 4 runs to 7 innings, I think the Nationals have a really good chance to win this game tonight, given that the stretch that they're on, because the Nationals know they have to stay on this heater. They have momentum. Let's continue that, you know?
exactly. Yeah, like you said, if he can go 7 innings, even like 6 2/3, get it, maybe even push 7, and if they can just get the bullpen through that 8th inning and get to Doolittle in the ninth, I think they're going to have a chance. It's just those 7th and 8th innings when you got the relievers coming in from the bullpen just screws the Nats over every single game. But I do agree. I think that the game with the series with the Mets was just devastating, and they should have easily swept the Mets. But like I said, with everyone coming back off injuries, except for Zimmerman so far, the bats have woken up. They just got to clean up all the errors in the infield and the outfield and clean up the base running errors. And I think that they can start playing, hopefully, better than 500 baseball and get this thing turned around because God knows DC needs it right now.
Yeah, they're 11 games under 500. The Phillies continue to win games. They keep separating themselves from the Nationals. And if the Nationals want to win this game, if they want to beat the Phillies, if they want to take the division, I know the statistics, percentage-wise, it's almost borderline impossible at this point. But if the Nationals can start winning some series, they're going to put themselves in a very good chance to, by the All-Star break, they'll be within 6 games. But they have to start it now because a 6-game differential at the All-Star break is not inconceivable to attain in a way.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm 100% there. They have to do well tonight, and I really do expect them to do so because I do think that Davey Martinez deserves a chance. I think he deserves a chance to continue getting this team because we see this in all professional sports and all sports. When a bunch of injuries happen and the team starts losing games, the manager, the coach, they immediately start catching blame for the losing of games, and it just
Right.
comes down to strictly not having enough talent.
Like, it's different in football because you need to be coached up and, like, blah, blah, blah. Like, coaching really goes into it. With baseball, it's like you're a manager. Like, literally, you're just managing the people day to day. And it really comes down to the players at that point. Like, are the players producing? Are they performing on the field? And it sucks to say that, like, the manager shouldn't get fired over that, but somebody got to take the fall. And it's not going to be Rizzo. So, I mean, you know.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And look, Juan Soto needs to continue on this stretch that he's on.
Yeah.
Right
Yeah,
now
he's having a good stretch right now.
he's on a 9-game hitting streak right now. So hopefully he continue that tonight against Alcantara because he has a 281 average right now with 4 home runs and 14 RBIs. Sorry, that's Matt Adams. I'm reading off the wrong line, but he has 8 home runs and 33 RBIs with a 281 batting average. So Juan Soto needs to be. I think he's playing like if Bryce was on this team. I think their numbers would be very similar,
Yeah.
given the fact of the position that they're in. But he needs to continue this if the Nationals want to do well. I think there is no mistaking that one frickin' bit. But
Yeah, he definitely needs to get the home runs and the average up a couple points. But yeah, I 100% agree.
but that being said, if they continue to fall down this hole, they keep falling down this well, and there is no bottom of this well. How long do you think that Davey has? Because I mean, I'll say Mike Rizzo was on with the Junkies this week, and he said it's way too early to be talking about getting rid of Davey. It's way too early to be talking about making changes of that caliber. And so I want to pick your mind on where you think that is a eligible and a good time to do it.
Um, I mean, if they lose these next 3 games and they lose them bad, and it's just errors after mistake after mistake after error, I think it could be after this series. But if they can just string together a couple wins, play some good baseball, get a couple more wins on his belt, I mean, I don't think they're going to make a change before the All-Star break, just because give the guy give him a little bit to turn it around. Like, no one's been healthy, people are starting to come back, so let's see how they do leading up to All-Star break. But if it's not getting any better or if it's getting worse leading up to All-Star break, I don't think he survives through that. But hopefully he makes it through the season because from all accounts, everyone says he's a good guy. Like, it's just, I don't know, man. They should have never got rid of Dusty, if you ask me.
Hey, I think that Dusty made a lot of critical errors at critical times. I know that he did get us to the playoffs
He
as
didn't deal with he
manager.
didn't deal with like a lot of injuries as well, also. So I will put it on him too.
Right. But so let's move on to some top headlines around the NFL cuz I do want to talk about these. But the first thing is, did you hear about McNabb saying that he's a Hall of Famer and that he has better numbers than Troy Aikman?
Yeah, I did read about it. I heard he's like, but you don't have three Super Bowls like Troy Aikman, so you can just shut up on that point. But yeah, I mean, this is McNabb being McNabb. He's an idiot. I didn't know he was so self-absorbed.
Oh
But
man.
yeah, I mean, he's definitely not Hall of Fame. He's Eagles like Hall of Fame, definitely, but Hall of Fame, like NFL Hall of Fame, nah. Like he's you shouldn't me.
Yeah, I really don't I can't think of a time that in the NFL when we thought to ourselves that Donovan McNabb was the best quarterback in the NFL.
Hell no. He wasn't even never even like the best quarterback in the NFC.
And
Like,
look, I know we can make the argument that he was during the time of Peyton, he was during the time of Tom Brady, Drew Brees. I get it. But the fact being is that he got Philly to the Super Bowl once. They lost with a good wide receiver. I'll give him that. But the fact being is, it's not the Hall of the Great. It's the Hall of
exactly.
Fame. And McNabb was great for a good while, but he's not Hall of Fame. I think he's just like Tony Romo in that aspect. You were great at what you did, but you're not a Hall of Famer. And there's people that are loyal to obviously McNabb and Tony Romo that want to see them as Hall of Famers because of their respective teams. But let's just be quite frank with it. There's no way that McNabb is a freaking Hall of Famer.
Right. I mean, you can ask like 10 Eagles fans, and I guarantee 7 out of 10 of them would be like, hell no, he's not a Hall of Famer.
Right.
So,
Absolutely not. I don't think that one bit. But look, McNabb can think whatever the hell he wants, but dude, he's not getting into the Hall of Fame.
hey,
Just
maybe his wife or whoever will sew him his own little gold jacket. He have his own little ceremony at his house.
right. And if Donovan wanted to be in the Hall of Fame, he should have wished that Jerry Jones was his owner, because that apparently that's the only way that guys get into the Hall of Fame nowadays.
Exactly.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying that even the fact that Tony Romo was even talked about being in the Hall of Fame is a joke, and
Exactly.
I think it's disrespectful to the Hall of Fame to be quite frank, because obviously Jerry, we both know Jerry controls the NFL. It's him, Jim Mora, Arthur Blank there in
The
Atlanta,
rookies.
the Rooneys, and obviously the Patriots owner Kraft, the
Yep.
massager. They really do dictate the NFL, but more times than not, it seems that Jerry is the front runner. I mean, we could talk about Dean Blandino, his scene getting off the Cowboys team bus. Not really the bus, but it was like the owner's bus back when he was the head of the officiating. I mean, it just reeks that, and even the fact that Jerry got into the Hall of Fame. Like what are we doing here? But no, it just shows that they bend over backwards for Cowboys and Jerry Jones guys,
Yep.
and I don't think Troy Aikman deserved to be in the Hall of Fame. I think Emmitt Smith did, but Michael Irvin, I don't think so either. But I do think that Emmitt Smith did deserve it.
Yeah. I mean, just based off all the Super Bowls they won, like they didn't have a choice but to get in. But yeah, I mean, just as far as like numbers wise, like Troy Aikman, as far as his numbers were, he was like average, a little bit above average at best. And Michael Irvin was definitely like in his prime a great receiver. It's just he had so much off the field stuff. Like if you want to like talk about like To and like getting in, not getting in on the first ballot, blah blah blah, off the field, a locker room cancer guy, blah blah blah. Look at Michael Irvin. That man was caught up all the damn time doing stuff, but
Yeah, I call him Michael Artie Lang Irvin.
that man did love his cocaine.
He did, and I think that if you just watch Michael Irvin on TV for 5 minutes, I think you can. I think you can see some traces there.
Yeah.
That's not makeup on my man's nose. I can guarantee you that.
Just have his flashbacks every now and then, like ah.
Dude, and look, I respect Donovan. I respect his opinion. He kicked the Redskins' ass a bunch of times, but he's not deserving of being in there. But I'm done talking about that dude because he's annoying. The last time he was relevant, he was found out that he was in Mia Khalifa's DMs. What does that tell you?
That's not Hall of Fame at all.
No, it's not. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is actually the recently released Gerald McCoy from the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers are eating the $13 million of his salary that he's owed this season. And he was on quote to say this week, "I want to win," and he's going to go to a contender. Who do you think that contender could be?
I've been hearing rumblings that I don't think the Browns are like Super Bowl contenders yet, but I know that the Browns were interested in him, and he had similar interest in the Browns possibly. But if he wants to go to a contender, I could definitely see him fitting in with. Hmm. I was saying the Cowboys in the beginning, but I don't think they're gonna have enough cap space to like sign him.
No, not with the way that they paid DeMarcus Lawrence, and they're going to have to
Yeah,
pay Zeke and Dak. There's no way. But look, I'll give you two teams right now.
I was gonna say the Patriots just because
Yeah,
like that reeks of like him.
yeah. I'd say the Patriots are the one seed. To be frank, with you, the number two team that I think that could be the surprise team, but is a perfect fit, would be the Rams. Them
Yeah,
losing Ndamukong Suh, Gerald McCoy being down there in Tampa. He was the only thing on that defense. Teams double teamed him all the time. With him lining up next to Aaron Donald, I think that he could wreak havoc and do really well for the Rams.
yeah, definitely. He can come in, fill Sue's spot, which we kind of they should have just traded him because didn't Sue get signed by the Bucks?
Yeah,
So they could just be like swapping each other's places and shit. But
exactly.
yeah, definitely I could definitely see him going up to the Rams, making their defense better, plugging up that middle for them. That's definitely I didn't really think of that. That's pretty good.
Yeah, and before he said I want to win, one team that came to mind to me was the Raiders, because I felt like the Raiders could have really been. I thought they should have gone defensive tackle in the draft, to be frank with you,
Uh-huh.
with one of the first round picks that they had, but they went rusher, they went safety, and they went running back. I thought they should have gotten a defensive tackle, but they didn't. And the fact being is, I think Gerald McCoy could bring some sustainability and bring some class to that defensive line, because going back to Hard Knocks in Tampa, he is an awesome dude.
hmm
And he can help on the field a lot, but off the field in the locker room, I think he'd be perfect for that team.
Definitely, he can teach the young guy Maurice Hurst on the Raiders a couple moves, get him much better. Even though he's good now, but definitely get him to like top tier ranking, like top tier level. So yeah, that would definitely be a good pickup. And yeah, I mean, Cracky called it. He was like, I can see McCoy going to the Raiders because John Gruden loves old guys, so it'd be perfect.
Yeah, and look, old guys, there's not a problem with old guys.
No,
There really isn't. A lot of teams have won with old guys, in particular. But I just feel like the Raiders, the way that Antonio Brown has acted in the offseason, obviously you and I have talked about that. We thought that it was all a ploy to get traded, which worked. But the fact being is that if Antonio Brown still has the kind of out of control behavior that he showed that he had in Pittsburgh, I think Gerald McCoy would be a guy that you put his locker right next to Antonio Brown, and
hmm
you have a problem fixed right there, because Gerald McCoy is a leader. He leads by example, and I'm telling you, he would not let Antonio Brown run wild and do the disrespectful things that he did in Pittsburgh, to be quite honest with you.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that'd be a great fit. Great locker room stability. Also, I just thought of this off the top of my head. I can see it definitely a great fit with the Ravens. I don't know what their cap space is looking like and blah blah blah, but I could definitely see him going on down to Baltimore and fitting in there good, making their run defense that much better because they lost CJ Mosley in the middle, so he can be that plugger up in the middle for the Packers to come up in the gaps, fill the gaps, and but yeah, definitely the Raiders would be a better fit over the Ravens.
And one thing I do want to talk about that we just hashed on the Steelers a little bit was Joey Porter was recently on a radio show getting interviewed, and he had talked about the fact, he said that basically Big Ben used power, used his power to his own benefit, as the quarterback there, which is something that doesn't surprise you and I. But
hmm
it just continues the amounting evidence of who Big Ben really is off the field, because he kind of is giving you the Carl Edwards, and I'm not sure if any of you guys know who Carl Edwards is, but he's a NASCAR driver. And it was always talked about that Carl Edwards to the TV was a real nice guy, was a real fan type guy, but off the camera, he was a huge douche. And it almost is eerily similar to that with Big Ben, because you saw Big Ben on the radio, on TV, talking on the radio every week. He sounded like a nice, humble guy. But then AB started mouthing off, and Lev started talking, saying, I know he said before that if him and Big Ben were if closer, they would have been better off. But
Right.
so we're finally starting to see the painting. Each stroke of the brush, we're starting to see the final picture here, and that's that Big Ben is almost a selfish kind of I'm looking out for myself kind of mentality, and I don't care who I throw under the bus.
Nah, man, it's the media, man. They don't know what they're talking about, man. Nah, man, the media, man. They just love to shit on Ben, man. They don't know what they're talking about, man. Like it's Pittsburgh, man. Nah, man. That was my best Gavin impression.
But to be honest, I mean, this is coming from Joey Porter, somebody
Exactly.
that is
A legend.
a legend for the Steelers, won multiple Super Bowls with them, coached their linebackers last year. They fired him, they let him go after the defense was playing poorly. And now he's coming out saying this because this isn't a guy that has, like, honestly, I know we're talking about he got fired from the coaching staff, but it's not like he has a vendetta against Pittsburgh. It's
Yeah,
not like,
I mean, he's someone that he played with Ben.
right,
So like,
for multiple years and was in the same locker room with this guy. And he's even saying it. Someone like the ballet dancer, Rashad Mendenhall, echoing the same kind of sentiments that Antonio Brown was saying. I mean, it's insane to think about that for all this time, nobody talked about how much of a douche Ben was until AB spoke up.
it's just gonna take someone like Troy Polamalu to come out for then everyone to be like, oh my God, Troy's saying it, then it must be true. Like, so,
Let's
but I
be
mean,
let's be honest. We're talking about the arrogant Steelers fans that think that Big Ben is holier than holy. He is God in Pittsburgh country, and what's going to have to happen is the same thing would happen with Antonio Brown. It's going to have to literally implode. They're going to have to self-destruct for them to turn on Big Ben because it wasn't until Antonio Brown did that the diehard Steelers fans started saying, well, oh, Antonio Brown's a bad guy.
yeah, exactly.
I mean, I've talked about this many times. I called it in frickin' October, November. I said if Antonio Brown doesn't chill out, he's going to find himself traded. You and I talk about this all the time. I got yelled at, got told I had no idea what the hell I was talking about. Little do we know, less than half a year later, he's on to another team. He got traded for peanuts because of the position that he put the Steelers in. So, look, anything can happen, and I think that what we're seeing is a product of the truth finally being exposed about one of the better quarterbacks in the league.
Preach.
It's so true, dude. It's so true. All right, everybody. Well, that's about our show for you. We broke down a lot for you. Please like and share our page. We talked a little bit about the Redskins, the fantasy implications of players possibly starting. We talked about the fantasy football overall rankings. We're going to keep going into fantasy football every week. We're going to keep giving you Redskins news and NFL news. We'll give you the NBA, our prediction for the finals, and we'll kind of give you our thoughts on how this Eastern Conference finished out after tonight's game. So thank you very much for everyone tuning in, and please like and share our page and subscribe to us on iTunes. You can find us on the podcast label under the Burgundy Zone. All right, Mike, thank you very much for joining in, brother. Always appreciate it. I'll see you
Appreciate it.
Am I going to see you tonight? You're going to come to Stephen Bowes?
Yeah, let me talk to Courtney. I'm texting her now, so I'm going to see what she's talking about, and then I'll send you a text later on.
All right, buddy. All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Redskins football. Woo!
Woo!